Hello, everyone. I hope that you can hear me. We've been having some LinkedIn audio little glitches this morning, but we're here, we're live, we're ready to go. For those of you who do not know, I am Talaya Dendy, the host of Navigating Cancer Together. And today I have the amazing Walter Gaynor II joining me. And we are going to talk about something that I'm sure everyone who is a podcaster has experienced or will experience if you haven't already. And it is, when is it a good time to take a break from your podcast? And how do you do that effectively without losing your audience, without losing your momentum? And how do you come back stronger than ever after your break? Again, my name's Talaya, host of Navigating Cancer Together, and I would like for you all to welcome Walter, who is here with me today. Walter, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for organizing this. I don't know if you realize it, but you're actually bringing me back from a break right now. I haven't done an audio event in a mini minute. Shout out to some of y'all in here who've been to my past ones. I've been out here just hiatusing it up. But yeah, I'm a host of Boss Logs and the Working While Black show. I like to call myself a three times burnout champion. I've been there, done it, fallen, tumbled, but made it back each time. So excited to have this convo with you.
Thank you, Walter, for joining me. Before we really dive into the conversation, I have to share a quick story about how Walter and I ended up here today with you all. A couple weeks ago, around December 19th or so, I had attempted to do my first LinkedIn audio event. And I had so many difficulties. People couldn't hear me. Attendees, I had a hard time bringing them on for people that wanted to join us and talk. There were just a lot of things going on. And so a colleague and friend of mine, Dee Dee Hairston, said, Talea, why don't you reach out to some of the folks in the Black Podcasters Association? And I'm sure someone will be willing to help you and kind of point out some things that they have experienced and some tips that have helped them. And so I put that out there, said, hey, I ran into some glitches during my first LinkedIn audio event. Anyone have any ideas or tips? And Walter was so kind to offer his assistance. He is amazing, very knowledgeable, an amazing podcaster and content creator. And I'm sharing this because it's just to shine light on how important it is to not be afraid to reach out and ask for help, but then also the amazing podcasting community and how people will step up and really support you in the ways that, can help you move forward. So, Walter, thank you so much for your support and guidance and for joining me today.
Oh man, my pleasure. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I think shout out to Stephanie. You tagged me in that post that you made. And yeah, it's like that, support people and kind of like what you mentioned about the community. I think part of what's helped me to kind of come back each time is having a community, one like the Black Podcast Association, just that group of people who've kind of been through some of these things before. Then also have my core support group who's just always looking out for me and making sure I don't just like diminish the stuff that I'm doing and kind of reminding me that it's important and it kind of has that impact. So yeah, community has been everything my whole entire life.
Mhm.
Big factor into the whole equation.
Wonderful. You're doing great. And tell the audience about your new podcast that's coming up.
Yes. The Working While Black show. So, even, speaking of community, once again, over the years, I've had these different conversations with people about how to navigate their career. And when I was in the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program, I kind of took these conversations and turned it into this series called The Working While Black. And it was me doing live shows here on LinkedIn, doing audio events, and just really diving into these conversations about how people have kind of managed the nuances of being Black in the workplace, from microaggressions to being the only Black person in the room to, okay, now I'm in this powerful position. How do I create this team around me? Just really digging into people's experiences. Because I think one of the challenges, both in podcasting and then also being, a Black professional or maybe the only one in this workplace is this feeling of being alone, feeling like we're the only ones going through this something. So created this show to just kind of help create that community for people who may not have it, to share stories with people who, have relatable experiences. So yeah, launching that. Technically, actually, it's out today, but
Okay.
official launch is coming next week. Gonna do a little launch party to just celebrate. 'Cause celebrations are important. Yeah, excited to share it with y'all.
Wonderful. I look forward to it. I know it's going to be great. And you are touching on a lot of things that I've experienced when I was in corporate America. So I know it will be very beneficial for the listeners.
Shout out to corporate America, bring us all together.
Right, exactly. So let's really get to what we're here about today. The first thing I want to touch on are what are some of the pros and cons of taking a podcast break? I've taken a couple of those breaks myself and they have been beneficial. But then in some ways, it felt like when I came back, I had to start all over again with my audience. So we're going to, talk about some pros and cons, some tips and tricks of how to take a break correctly if that's a good way to say it, so that you don't lose your audience and your momentum. And I'll start off by sharing a couple pros that I've experienced when taking a podcast break. For me, it allowed me to really recharge my content. It allowed me to, explore new ideas and new perspectives. And that allowed me, when coming back, to come back with fresh episodes, with renewed passion, excitement. So those were some things that really helped me out or that I found to be pros of taking a podcast break. And then also another pro is just preventing more burnout, just feeling like, wow, I don't want to do this today. For me, editing was one of those things and still is that really just drains me. So just being able to step back and take a break, that has been something that has been very beneficial and has allowed me to keep moving forward. But then also, another pro of taking the break is just allowing me to focus on my self care, to focus on other things that I enjoy, other hobbies, just to relax and not think about podcasting all of the time. So, Walter, what are some pros that you've experienced?
Pros, I think just like so like tunnel vision, something that I think can be a helpful ability to have that. Put a heart emoji, y'all, if y'all ever kind of find yourself getting into tunnel vision. If you could just kind of focus in and just lose sight of everything else, you're just going in on the mission. Like you're just very focused. Like I'm gonna accomplish this task. I'm gonna crush it. I'm gonna own it, dominate it, all of it. But I just think about tunnel vision. It's like you're down in the tunnel, which means you're not aware of anything else that's going on around you, and that you're gonna go down the tunnel. You're gonna get to the end for sure. Hopefully, if you make it, but just having that awareness of what's going on in the world is incredibly important. I mean, just from a political standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, or maybe even new advancements, especially as podcasters, whether you are talking about current events or not, everything that's happening in life affects what you're going to be talking about or how people are feeling when they're coming to listen to what you're creating. Think about the whole Israeli and Palestine conflict, regardless of how you feel about it, where your stance is, and what you know about it. There was that period of time when things were just taking off, and it's like if you were promoting something else, I mean, you can, of course, because that's your work. You put it out there. People need distractions, but it's also like how sensitive are you to what people are feeling right now? Maybe it's time to kind of switch or maybe create a special episode specifically for people just to better understand and things like that. I was managing a podcast and they had done an episode touching on this like years ago, which is crazy just thinking about how long conflicts could last, right? But they decided to just change their scheduled release schedule. That's like a big podcast, yo. They decided to kind of hold off on putting out the episode with their kind of big guest to re-air a previous episode. Of what they did, it kind of spoke to the current times and also it helped to save that big guest for a little bit later when not necessarily things cool down, but you could actually promote it and it could get seen. So I think taking that break kind of helps you to have a little bit more awareness of what's going on around you, regardless of, and then also kind of that recharge as well. But I think it's that awareness piece is crucial.
Thank you for sharing your perspective, Walter. And also, feel free to put comments, share your pros and cons. What have you experienced if you have taken a break? Drop it in the comments section. I would love to take a look at it. Also, interact with each other. If you see people, other attendees that you want to connect with, make sure you reach out to them on LinkedIn. Now, let's talk about some of the cons of taking a podcast break. For me, it was losing momentum. And so, having a regular audience, all of a sudden you take a break and it can result in a drop in listenership and engagement. And it makes it harder to regain momentum when you return. The other thing that I've experienced also is getting new listeners. It's hard for new people to find you when you're on break, and that can really impact your podcast growth. The other thing, this came to mind last night when I was thinking about this. I am not monetizing my podcast right now, but I
Mhm.
often wonder how podcasters who monetize and they take a break, how does that impact their financials? Does it lead to reduced revenue from ads or sponsorships? And maybe, Walter, if you've done some monetization, you can speak to that.
Yeah, of course. Also curious, but thumbs up if any of y'all are monetized, just because want to celebrate y'all. Um, yes and no. So what's kind of funny is for the first podcast. So the One Small Black podcast is the new one, but I started off with a show called Boss Locks: The Story of New Growth, and that's the one that was on hiatus for a long time, partly because of just trying to figure out how everything works. Then also, I got comfortable with not publishing and not kind of being in that publish active podcaster lifestyle. And I'll speak to that a little later. But to answer your question on monetization, that definitely does affect things. What's kind of funny is during my break, there was a brand that reached out to me. I don't know exactly where they saw it, but it's just kind of goes to show that sometimes we're kind of pushing to put episodes out to satisfy advertisers or satisfy potential listeners. But sometimes just having something that exists can still bring you closer to some opportunities. I don't know why they reached out to me because that show had been kind of collecting dust for a minute. But technically, what I would say is if you stop putting out episodes, then yes, it does affect your advertisement old episodes. You can still push people to old episodes, and if they are monetized, then you can still earn. There's something called dynamic ad insertion, which is still kind of new to independent podcasters, but very, very common amongst big brands or big networks. Basically, you can insert ads into everything that's in your catalog from the beginning of time to the present, and so if your old episodes are still getting new listens, which they should, by the way, it should, that's part of marketing and growing the show. But then you actually still can earn, but it does kind of limit your reach if you're not putting out new episodes. Something that we did on a show and helped manage last year is put out best of episodes because there was a kind of a change in host, and we actually saw those best of episodes getting pretty good engagement. But that was like months after not putting out anything. So even when you take a break, there are still things you can do to keep something going, some type of momentum. But yes, you are correct in the thought that not putting out new stuff limits your reach. But there's still things you could do.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. And then also for anyone listening, if you have taken a podcast break and you struggle with audience retention, anything like that, please give a thumbs up just to let everyone know that, hey, you're not alone when you return. You're like, where did my audience go? How do I get them back? So let's transition into tips for taking a strategic break. And
Mm,
throughout this, all I've been thinking about is plan, plan, plan. Don't just say, "Oh, I'm taking a break tomorrow." Like, really plan it out, and start to have that conversation, I think, with your audience. So, for example, if you're starting to feel like, I need a break, I'm starting to lose my creativity, I'm just not feeling it anymore. I think in a month or so, I want to take a break and just start to plan that out. Set a clear break duration. So if you're going to take a break, let your audience know I'll be gone for a month or two. Announce it ahead of time. Schedule your episodes, or if you have rebroadcast or reruns, schedule those out ahead of time. But what I found, Walter, and everyone else listening, is that communication is key and letting your audience know what's coming. What's your perspective, Walter?
Yeah, communication is key, and I think that kind of sucks is that, and y'all let me know if this kind of the same with y'all, but usually kind of when we get to that burnout point, it's almost too late. We don't have anything in the cut in the storage in the vault to just put out and schedule, and then we kind of find ourselves trapped in this like, no, I cannot do anything more. I'm done. I need to stop. I need to take that break, but we don't really have anything else. So in that moment, I remember, I think the first time or maybe the second, no, the first time I took a break because I knew like, okay, I need to chill for a second. I recorded a short 2-minute episode, letting people know I'll be back, y'all, but I need to chill for a second. The second time I burnt out, I thought I was going to be back. And then it basically went like a whole year without me saying anything, just kind of like ghost. So, yeah, the best time to plan for a burnout is when you're not burnt out and go ahead and put that extra episode, just record it so you have some little evergreen episode and then you're ready. You're ready for that break.
I agree with that. And the other thing that I came across, I haven't actually done this yet, but I think it's a really good suggestion. And it's creating an interactive calendar. So, sharing a visual calendar like on your website or your podcast website that outlines when you're going to take a break, how long it will be, the content that you're planning on releasing, and then when you'll return, just to kind of let people know that you just haven't abandon them, that, "Hey, here's my plan. I look forward to regrouping with you." And then also, if you're able, while you're taking a break, just kinda stay engaged on social media, pop up here and there. Maybe, do some polls or something like that just to check in and see how everyone's doing. Those are some really, I think, easy ways to stay engaged when you're taking a break.
I like all those. I like all of those. Yeah. Think if I were to say anything, I would say in addition to that, I would say go ahead and like plan out a break. And I'm saying that for me as well as a reminder because I am out here flirting with burnout, constantly every week. I was
Mhm.
journaling earlier, but something I started doing recently more intentionally, like forcing myself to journal in the morning. I don't know if y'all do, but
Mhm. Yeah.
I realized that I was feeling the signs of burnout. Like I said, I'm like a three-time burnout champ heavyweight. And so I kind of noticed the signs now. And I started to realize, like, okay, you know what? What I'm feeling is burnout. And then I realized, but I don't actually want to stop just yet because that's not really the solution. That's almost like that's the band-aid you put on top of the burnout wound. I need to figure out what the whole core problem is. And I realized, once again, math is just continues to be something that I end up using in life. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, let me look at this like a algebraic equation. This is what I'm feeling. This is what's happening. How do I solve for X? X being the root cause of the burnout. Because taking a break isn't it's good to reset, but I'm not trying to
Mhm.
experience this at all anymore.
Right.
And I'm trying to go very hard this year. So I realized that part of the reason I'm burning out is lack of management and systems that make what I'm doing scalable. And then on top of that is like expectations I have for myself.
Mhm.
And I think that's just, we were talking about that before, just this world we live in is just the side effects of capitalism and high productivity is to kind of push and push and push ourselves to the max so that we can produce something on time. And then for an independent creators, like we're the only ones setting these standards and requirements on ourselves. So me learning trying to learn how to set healthy expectations for myself.
I
That's
agree
where I'm
with
at
that.
now.
I agree. That is a fact because, when you're an independent creator, you want everything to be right. You want it to be a certain way. Typically, you may be the only one who's doing all of these things. And just trying to balance everything can be tough in itself. And just like you said, catching it ahead of time before you even get to that burnout point. And one thing that I found helpful and that I'm going to do again is that because I'm starting to feel it creeping in a little bit, the burnout. One thing that I'm gonna do, and I'm not gonna feel guilty about it, is change the frequency of my podcast, and by that, I mean,
Mm.
right now, I release every week. But to prevent from just burning out completely or just throwing up my hands and say, "Hey, I'm ending this podcast," I'm gonna go back to every other week. And guess what? That's okay because I'm still in the game. It's just not as frequent, and it's allowing me in a sense, that is my long-term break, is to go from weekly to biweekly. That's going to afford me the time to reset on those off weeks and focus on other things while recharging my creativity. And that's one thing that I decided to do this year, actually starting next month, is I'm going to go from every week releasing episodes to bi-weekly. And I think that's going to be a good thing. I really do. And it's okay to switch things up. Just communicate.
Mm, that's right. Just communicate. That's the message of the year. Just
Mhm.
communicate. You know that bi-weekly release date. I, it, mm, I think this is part of like burnout as well. We kind of look at the people who are on the top winning, and they're doing like weekly, daily
Mhm.
episodes. But I think sometimes things that we don't see because we look at them as these like self-made type of people, but they all have teams behind them, which allow them to do weekly and daily content. But bi-weekly is honestly more realistic for independent creators who are not doing this full time. Like, yeah, I'm working. This is my lunch break basically right now. But um, doing things bi-weekly though, I think is still actually like a good like strategy you could do because basically what that means is that people have where you have 2 weeks to share about this episode and you could mix things up. You could try new things with the marketing and stuff too. So I'm actually excited to see how doing bi-weekly works for you because I honestly do believe it's a good method to use. And especially if your content's good, people will be back.
Mhm.
People will be back. They'll miss you weekly, but they'll be there every other week, twice a month, ready to
Mhm.
listen.
Yeah, yeah. And the funny thing, Walter, you made a great point, is when I first started, I've had my podcast for about 2.5 years now. I started in
Ooh,
August.
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I started in August of 2021. And when I started, it was biweekly. And so I started getting into the mix of things and doing all this research. And like you said, it was, oh, in order to be really effective, you need to release every week if you can't do it multiple times a week. And I'm like, well, multiple times definitely isn't going to work. Let me try the weekly thing. And and I've been doing the weekly thing ever since. And now it's coming back to, oh no, girl, go back to bi-weekly. It's okay. And I just feel like you said, it gave me more time to promote my upcoming episodes. It gave me time to just breathe a little bit, to do some extra creative things. Because for me, right now, weekly, it's like, okay, I finish one and then I got to start promoting another and promoting
Hmm.
another. And it just is this cycle where I want more time for people to know about the episodes that I'm putting out there. And if I'm not able to take the time to really promote the way that I feel is adequate for people to really find my podcast and learn about the guests and learn about me, it's kind of like, well, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
you have to really, it comes down to you have to figure out what works best for you. And no matter what that is, your audience, if it's the audience that's in alignment with you, they're gonna be okay with it. They just wanna know what's going on.
that's facts.
Mhm.
You're doing
Yeah.
a good job at this, by the way. Just want to share.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
give a
you.
round of applause
Oh,
if you're
thank
feeling this
you.
audio event.
Thank you. You too. A lot of great perspectives and insights. I love it. You're definitely a pro. I've learned a lot in this short time. But one other thing, Walter, before we start to wrap up, is one thing I think that's really important when you're taking a break, and just anytime, you don't have to be taking a break. But I think it can be really critical when you are taking a break is to collaborate with other creators. And by that, I mean appear on other podcasts, co-host live
Mm,
events, kind of like what we're doing here, participate in online discussions, just to kind of keep some visibility out there going. What are your thoughts?
I think I just learned something. I didn't have that in my here's what to do strategy if you burnt out and taking a break. That's a good one. That's a very good one. Yeah. Because you could take that content and that could be your marketing content, kind of taking clips. And there's tools now out there that create the clips for you without you having to do anything. So yeah, that's a good one. That's an A plus pro tip.
Wonderful. Thank you. And
Michelin star pro
yeah,
tip.
thank
Yeah, I
you.
have to keep
Thank you.
going, but yeah,
And
better beer business rated pro. Okay, I'm done.
okay. All right, I made it, I made it. And so and so, please, if you have, like, any tips, any comments, any stories of your own about podcast breaks that you've taken, please put it in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going even after this audio event. And Walter, what do you think? Should we bring a couple people on before we wrap up, if they're interested?
Oh, my favorite thing about audio events is speaking to people. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. A lot of familiar faces I've not spoken to in a minute. Some people I owe some content for. So yeah.
Wonderful. So if anyone's interested in coming up, raise your hand. I will attempt to bring you on if LinkedIn lets me. And you can come on and share your tips, any of your experiences. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Yeah, this I think this audio events is now officially like 2 years old on LinkedIn. And I remember at first there were all sorts of glitches and stuff, and then I was like all straight, everything was good. Then I'll never forget, like in I think it was like August of 2021, I was doing an audio event and everything was just crashing. I had to resort to Zoom. Luckily, people were still with me, but yeah, it was terrible. I was upset. I was like, wow, I'm just trying to talk to my people. I'm trying to come back from a break I was on. Actually, I was on a break trying to come back from it, and LinkedIn wasn't letting me. So
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I share your frustration. Like I said, my first one, Walter, I was ready. I had my layout, my outline, I was ready to go.
Mm.
And LinkedIn was, no, we're not going to make it that easy for you. And so, but I got through it. And I just want to thank you so much for guiding me on this one, helping me to feel more comfortable with the technology and just sharing your insights, your perspective, your experience. It's been so helpful. And you're just, you're a champion in this.
Oh, thank you. And shout out just for the work that you do outside of like navigating cancer. It's funny actually, this conversations are around helping people who are kind of in a difficult time. And this is just what you do in general, just helping people in like an extreme time of need where really not that many people can provide the support outside of just, hugs and well wishes. You're actually there to truly help people when they feel like they're all alone. So just thank you for the work you're doing. It's really dope. It's really dope. I hope I never need your services, but it's glad to know you're there.
Thank you, Walter, for that. I appreciate it. And I hope none of you do. Just to be honest, it is not an easy thing to go through. So I hope none of you do. And that's okay. And that's okay. But if you or, a loved one, a friend, if you happen to find yourselves or someone you care about in that situation, I'm always here to support you however I can. Connect with me on LinkedIn if we're not already connected. I would love to form relationships with you all and get to know you all a little bit better and listen to your podcast as well.
Same Z's. If I've spoken to you for a while, hit me up. I'll be quiet, but I haven't gone anywhere. DMs are always open. Business. Or and we're
Wonderful.
not business, but like say hello and all that stuff. But yeah, appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, Walter. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to everyone who stuck around, hung out with us a little bit today, got to know me a little bit better for participating. I appreciate you so much. And just remember that it is okay to power down your podcast, to take a break, to care for yourself, to step back and recharge, brush up on your creativity. There's a lot of different things that you can do to keep your audience don't feel like, hey, I'm chained to this podcast. I can't take a break. That's not true. It's all about planning and communication, and you can do it.
That's right.
And again, make sure to leave comments in the comment section about your stories with your own podcast breaks, any strategies that you want to share as well. I hope that you have found this LinkedIn audio event helpful, and I look forward to doing more of these in the future. Thank you for joining us today.
Take care, y'all.
Peace.